Could you give us insight on how the organization perceives the Knicks and the Cavs as challengers to them? And particularly after the trade deadline, where I mean the Knicks didn't do much, but the Cavs add DeAndre Hunter. And then it felt like, as you mentioned earlier, Torrey Craig gets signed as kind of like an answer. Like he might not play a ton, at least initially, but he's somebody who can shoot threes and has been a good 3-point shooter for 3 years and play defense, multiple positions he can guard. Do you feel like the Celtics really see them as true contenders, like teams that they have to quote unquote worry about? Or do they feel like, I mean, not that they're just sort of arrogant about the potential matchup against them, but could they just beat them and it not be like the most difficult thing in the world, I suppose?
Yeah, I think like on the record, anything you ask them about specific teams, I think like the feeling is it's really less about those matchups and it's more about us. Especially Western Conference teams. Like I don't think they want to hear anything about the West, but
Mm.
I think they'd be lying if they said the standings is not something that they're watching. And particular teams like the Cavs and the Knicks that are right up there. I haven't heard anything in particular about the Knicks as a matchup. I think the Cavs, just because of the lead they gained in the conference and just kind of this, I think pretty unexpected start to the season, and it's not looking like a fluke. It's looking pretty legit. Like I think I've heard a little bit more about the Cavs, but certainly I think the Knicks would be a tough matchup, and I think they're a team that I have a lot of respect for. I think that they would be a tough out for anybody. And so I've been kind of viewing it as like this is a very likely second round matchup. Just regardless of whether they end up the 2 seed or the 3 seed. I think the 1 seed, I'd be pretty surprised if they caught up at this point, but plenty of basketball left. But yeah, I haven't heard too much from the organization about like making moves to match opposing teams. I think they know what they did last year worked. And it's more about like getting back to that because they're not playing at the same level they were last year. And I think other teams maybe are responding to them. And I was actually, when I was in Golden State last week or 2 weeks ago, I asked Steph Curry about like repeating and the challenge of that. And he said, all summer teams are making moves and watching your film and trying to figure out how to beat the champions. And so it makes it that much harder to even win like a regular season game the next year. I think they're more on the receiving end of that than anything at this point.
I think that's a great point there, Noah, because I think sometimes we forget, and you kind of alluded to this at the top, right? How hard it is to actually repeat, right? The challenge of that and everybody gunning for you the year after you win the championship. When you look at this Knicks team, because it was a beatdown by the Celtics in the opening night of the season. What you said, you respect this team. What challenges do you think they pose in terms of the way they play to the Celtics squad?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is just Jalen Brunson because they've had a hard time this season with these small, kind of shifty guards. And so, like, just looking at the list of players that have lit them up this year, like, he fits right in there. I would be very surprised if he doesn't have a good game tomorrow. And obviously, he's a great player on his own, but they just haven't been able to. And I think it's part of it is just a reflection of their personnel. Like, guys like Drew Holiday have been pretty open about, like, the small guards is kind of more of a challenge for them than like they're not very often getting killed by wings. Like it feels like that's the prototype of player that they have been hurt by more this season. So he's just he comes to mind, and then obviously like I think they can exploit teams that don't have good wing defenders, and the Knicks have that now. At least I think with OG, and you guys can tell me how good Mikhail's been this year because I haven't watched him too much, but I know historically he's been a good defender as well. So I think like they match up pretty well against the Celtics. I always thought Isaiah Hartenstein was like one of the scariest players to go up against just because they're not the most consistent defensive rebounding team. I think just in general, like he just poses challenges for people. So him not being there like does give me a little bit of like I think that was an advantage that the Knicks have that maybe they don't anymore. But this is just a winning team, and every time I watch the Knicks play, like Josh Hart crashing the glass, like there's just elements of them that just you have to be on your game is my interpretation. And obviously, you guys watch them more than I do, but I think it's a tough out for anybody, and especially if you're kind of lackluster, you're going in with half effort, half speed. Like I don't think this is a team that you're going to be able to get away with that too much.